Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference channel. My name is Jesse Dave. We're counting down to the next VRIC, January 21st and 22nd, 2024. Stay tuned for tickets. And today's guest is the founder of the Endgame Investor, a gold-based approach to protecting wealth and profiting off Fed inflation, and someone I always like talking to. It's Rafi Farber. Welcome to the channel.
Thanks, Jesse, for having me. I really like your sort of questioning style, so I'm ready to go.
Awesome. I'm ready to go as well. So let's start with an interview you recently did. This was very fascinating. You interviewed a former IMF and Bank of America economist on your YouTube channel, and you had a very interesting debate with him defending the conventional banking system and you arguing that it is inherently corrupt. So, what were the main takeaways you took away from that interview?
I wouldn't call it a debate so much as I let him talk and go on about his points, and then anytime I saw that there was a blatant contradiction that I couldn't deal with, like I was like, wait a second, hold on, this doesn't make sense because of that, and then I would make him like ruminate on it a little bit, and then he'd be like, no, that's not what I'm saying, and he would just kind of like gloss over it, like not really getting the point. So I mean, I guess in terms of you could say what conclusions could I draw from that? Like one of the most contentious, it was like a respectful thing. We didn't yell at each other or anything, but one of the most pointed moments where I really saw a contradiction here was that he said something like the Fed's job is to set interest rates. So I said, wait a second, hold on. So you believe in price controls? And he said, no, of course I don't believe in price controls. But I said, isn't the interest rate a price? And you want the Fed to control it. So that's price control. He's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. Well, don't price controls control the price, like control the prices of goods in the economy? It's like, yeah, well, so everything in the economy is affected by interest rates. Yeah. So you believe in price controls of everything? No. So like you couldn't, it's not like he objected to that and proved that I was wrong. It's like it was like putting like a contradiction algorithm into a computer and it just like kind of glosses over it and like keeps going. That's what happens. So every time I would do that, he wouldn't be able to dig underneath it and show me that I was wrong because I was making deductive arguments. The other point is that the whole conception of it is that he doesn't understand, and even many gold bugs and silver stackers do not really understand the point that gold is money. We're not making a historical point that, oh, in the past it was money and now we have the dollar. And yeah, historically gold is money. No, I'm saying right now, all the time, when you use a dollar, you're using the gold value of a dollar. The gold is the money itself. And he didn't get that point because I pointed out that okay, you made all this money in the IMF and whatever, great, that's wonderful. I don't think it's that wonderful, but like there's worse things. and and I said, but if you look at the S&P versus gold since 1971, gold is outperforming. So you could have just done nothing and just held money, and you would have made more money than you did, at the IMF. And then he's like, well, why are you comparing it to gold? Gold is just another commodity. Why don't you compare it to any other commodity? Like, why is that a measure? I'm like, yeah, it's a measure because the monetary system is still based on gold, because once the gold exchange rate with the dollar or any other currency goes to infinity, that is the definition of hyperinflation. That means that gold is the money and the dollar is just a substitute for it. Does not understand that point. I don't think he has even the capability of understanding the point, because once he does understand that point, his entire system, he'd have to admit, is corruption. And he can't deal with that reality, because then what is his life? How would he get all this stuff? And what is all this stuff that he's preaching all the time? It just doesn't make sense. And some people are just really incapable of understanding that, because it means they've been going in the wrong direction. They have to turn around, go back, and it's going to lead them to disaster. And that's what I'm saying. And he can't see the disaster because he doesn't want to. That's it. That's the takeaway, I think, for me at least.
Yeah, hubris, ego, it's something that afflicts humanity in many, many different ways. So that doesn't surprise me at all. I would like you to break down the reasons why you think gold and possibly silver should form the foundation of any monetary system.
Okay, so this question I liked especially because it helps me illustrate the point of the first question, right? I said, and here I'm not accusing you of not understanding anything. I'm just going to use your question as you phrased it to illustrate the point that I just made in the previous point, right? My point is that many gold and silver bugs do not understand that gold and silver our money. Okay. Gold is by definition what a dollar is. It's a substitute for the dollar. It's at an inflated rate now that doesn't make sense. So we're buying it now on a huge discount, assuming that the substitute collapses and all purchasing power goes back into the original, because that's what's going to happen to save the division of labor when the substitute collapses. And silver, by the way, is how I see it, is the primary gold substitute. When we're on a gold standard, silver is the main gold substitute, unless there's a functional paper one or digital one that is honest. And on a silver standard, gold is, a silver substitute, but we're not on a silver standard anymore. We're on a gold standard. So when you say, why should gold and silver form the basis of a monetary system, I reject the question. It's a good question because it's not a good question. What I'm saying is that gold and silver do form the basis of all monetary systems. It's not an escapable point. You can't say we have an option to base it on gold or an option not to. There's no option. There's only one option, that is to base it on gold, because that's where all prices originate from in the past, and you have to continue that chain. You must continue the chain, unless you have like a Cambrian extinction and you really start life up from the beginning, and humanity goes back to a pure system of barter where gold doesn't even exist. That's not going to happen. That's really Armageddon, and that's not going to happen. Okay, we're going to have the end of a monetary system. It's not going to be the end of the world. It's going to be the biggest economic disruption in the history of the human race for sure, but it's not going to end us. So whatever monetary system we work out, also after this huge disruption, after the biggest disruption, economic disruption, monetary disruption in the history of the world, there's not going to be any central body that says, okay, well, we screwed up. What are we going to do? Centrally plan a new system so that it can work now. It's not going to work that way. You're not going to have the IMF or the WEF or the Bank of International or whoever these globalists are. They're not going to come together and impose a new system on us that works. It's not going to be a central plan. It's going to be the breakup of the economy, like the breakup of the Roman Empire. And then you're going to have pockets of people exchanging things for gold and silver because it's honest, or an honest substitute for it. And then gradually, after the big explosion, breakup, collapse of the Roman Empire, American Empire, same thing, then you're going to have a rebuilding of pockets, and gradually they're going to connect again. It's going to take a while. That's what's going to happen. In terms of what's going to be planned, or what should be planned as the new monetary system, how about honesty? Okay, gold and silver and money, use that. When you substitute it, don't inflate it, and that's going to be the new monetary system, just like it is after every collapse of every empire. That's what always happens. It's what's going to happen now. Technology does not change the nature of who we are, and we're going to see it again.
So you've given us a bit of a glimpse there into what you do call the end game. Maybe you could expand on that a little bit, because we've talked about this in the past, and I've said, like, are you worried about it? And you actually said, no, I actually want this to happen, because although it will be, potentially a calamity, it will cause a lot of pain. In the end, it is necessary to kind of return to sound money. So could you walk us through how you see that happening?
How the end game is the question, why I look forward to it, is the question, how do I see the end game unfolding exactly? Because I don't really have a good. Okay, so the second part, how do I see it unfolding exactly? I can't see it, how it unfolds exactly in terms of the consequences of it. How many people are going to die? I don't know. How many people will get rich? I don't know exactly what the political landscape is going to look like. I don't know. It's just going to be a lot less centralized. It's going to be a lot more regional, local, that kind of thing. I know people want a more meaty answer than that. So I guess I could say, look, the dollar is eventually going to die in the streets of the U.S. I've said this before. When something I see like the dollar is by definition the other side of the assets on the Fed's balance sheet. Most of those assets are either treasuries or mortgage-backed securities. I don't see treasuries defaulting outright, because they'll always raise the debt ceiling to enable more paying back of those things. But mortgage-backed securities could default because people could theoretically stop paying their mortgages. And when those start to default, what you have is a massive deflation, because if one side of the dollar defaults on balance sheet, then those dollars go out of existence on the other side because it balances out. And then you have a massive deflation. And then what happens is the Fed is going to have to print, like, to replace those dead dollars and take all the, and that's when you'll start to see the supermarkets raise prices on bread on the front end, right? It's connected in a very long chain, which the end of the chain at the supermarkets cannot see what's happening at the Fed's balance sheet. It's not like a supermarket, director is going to look at the Fed's balance sheet and say, oh, well, mortgage-backed securities defaulted today, I guess we have to raise the price of bread by 50%. That's not what happens. It's a chain that filters through the system, and no one part is conscious of another part directly. It's just all connected. So the maybe this is not the only way it could happen. I'm just a possibility. You start seeing defaults on mortgages and falling housing prices, and then a banking trouble from a bank that owns all these mortgages, and then a bailout in the Fed's balance sheet, and it goes like up like $5 trillion in a day, and then the dollar starts to collapse in the streets. Maybe that's one way it could happen. It could happen 1,000 other ways. I don't know. In terms of why I think that why I look forward to it, because once it happens, they lose power over us. All the terrifying news today, like, the WHO wants a global health passport. Does that mean that I won't be able to travel ever again? It might mean that, or it doesn't mean I won't be able to travel ever again. It means that I won't be able to travel until the WHO goes away. And when does that happen? When the countries that are giving it money can no longer give it money because their money is worthless. So I'm looking forward to that. Do I know it's going to be a calamity? Yeah, I know it's going to be a calamity. I'm not looking forward to the calamity, but it's going to be a sharp calamity, which will, in the end, lead to more liberty and freedom for everyone who survives it. Sort of like Jeremiah at the end of the first temple period. He's prophesying about destruction and doom. Does he want it? No. But does he think that anyone's going to turn around and save the system? No. So he's probably like, let's just get this over with, and God, stop talking to me and you're just pressing me, and like, let's just end it already, right? So that's probably what he felt like. That's kind of what I feel like. But I'm not crying about it. I'm trying to take it in good spirits, and that's it.
What's up, guys? Quick break. My name is Jay Martin. I'm the CEO of Cambridge House and the host of the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference. I wanted to quickly point your attention to a link right beneath this video where you can subscribe to our new weekly newsletter. If you want to better understand the minds of the best investors in the resource space, subscribe to this newsletter. I author it personally every Sunday, and I love writing it. Hit that link below to subscribe. All right, back to the interview.
You brought up the price of food going up. So I wanted to get your take on talk in the UK about putting price caps on basic food items. For those who maybe aren't familiar with the concept, could you talk about why that's a bad idea and why price controls ultimately don't work in a situation like that?
Well, it goes back to basic supply and demand curves, right? As price goes up, demand goes down. As supply goes up, price goes down, and supply and demand hit at an equilibrium point where the number of buyers equals the number of sellers, the market clears, and everything, and the transaction goes on. So if you force a price cheaper than it otherwise would be, you're going to have more willing buyers than willing sellers, and that middle point, the gap between the supply and the demand, is going to be how many people who want to buy this milk or whatever for that price. They can't because the store says, oh, we're out. So there's going to be shortages. Okay. And that means that not everyone is going to get their milk. You see this every time there is a gas shortage after a hurricane somewhere, and gas stations are not allowed to price gouge. What is gouge? It's just gouging. Nobody's gouging anyone. They're just raising prices because of supply and demand, right? Because after a hurricane, there's the supply gets cut off for a while, so price goes up. But if you don't let that price go up, then what you're going to have is lines at the gas station. People can't get gas at all. So it happens every time, and this extends really into the modern issue of CBDC. Everyone's worried about CBDC because the government can, force you to not spend a certain amount. That's the same thing as a price control. People are arguing to me, currency control is different from price control. It's not. It's not different. If you want to spend, 5 CBDCs units on a gallon of milk or whatever it is, and the government says, oh, you can't buy milk because that's above your carbon score credit today, you'll have to go with, water. Then somebody's going to find a way to buy milk by using something else that he can actually use, like, gold or silver. So you can't control CBDC. They can't control everything. Okay. Calm down. They're going to collapse.
Very interesting. I want to get your thoughts on BRICS nations and the potential for a gold-backed currency. Could such a currency actually challenge the US dollar as a reserve currency? And is this the form of sound money you're talking about when you say we need to return to a gold standard? Or is it a little bit more muddy than that? Because a lot of people are saying that it won't actually be, it won't be redeemable for gold, which could be one of the main issues with it.
Okay, so let's attack this way, right? If BRICS theoretically, the BRICS or a bunch of regional powers can group together and say we're going to trade in gold now, and either they're going to say like this is the currency that we're going to back with gold, whatever that means, back with gold, and if they make it believable and they actually are honest, which I don't think any of them are going to be. There are no good guys here, right? There's no the BRICS aren't the good guys and the Americans the bad. They're all bad. So they all want to cheat and they're looking for ways to one up each other through cheating. What I don't think they realize is they're all stuck in the same pyramid. So theoretically, yeah, you could have countries that decide they want to trade honestly, and they with gold, either directly actually physically shipping the physical metal. I don't think this is not going to happen, or making an actual honest currency. Fine, that would undermine the dollar. Yeah, but it wouldn't give them any advantage other than actually making their countries rich in a real capitalist way, with freedom. Do they want that? I don't think so. I don't think anyone high up in these globalist planner things wants freedom for anyone. I think they just want money for themselves. And if there's like there are no deep thinkers anymore anywhere in international politics. It's not there. So so what I think is going to happen is that no, BRICS are not going to come up. They might come up with some kind of way to try to cheat the system and make it look better, but that's not going to work. So I see like the entire international trade as it exists today collapsing, and then rebuilding from the bottom up, just like I see the collapse of the entire end game of no central planning, a monetary system, no central planning. This is just organically happening. When the gold standard happened, it wasn't like people came, like, these international organizations said, okay, now we're going to have a gold standard. We're going to trade on gold. It's just country after country started using gold because other countries are using gold and it worked. That's all. You don't need these plans. No plan is going to work.
So I want to talk about silver inventories at the COMEX because you made a video recently talking about how the silver supply had dropped to 28 million ounces. So could you talk about the significance of this and what it might mean for the silver market?
I think now it's at 27 million, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so it's a million even lower than that. I think the all-time record low is 22 million. Frankly, I'm not sure if there is any significance to the amount. There might not be, but if you work it out in your head, there could be if there is a raid on the COMEX and people actually want the physical metal, then it will be a problem. And I do see that happening. But it has happened before that I think in 2015, 2016, when silver was at a low, and you would expect silver to be drained after that, but the supply went back up. But then you could say it went back up into the COMEX because the demand for silver was low back then. So if we're at a point where if what's happening, we don't know exactly why the registered silver is going down. Yet we can theorize, oh, maybe it's that people want physical silver, maybe, but I don't know. I haven't interviewed or asked these people who are taking the actual stuff what they're doing with it. I don't know. But I want to think that they're taking it to save it because they see a monetary collapse, and maybe some of them are. And if that is happening, then yeah, it is significant that when if these people are taking the supply off for that reason, then a low supply would mean that the COMEX could crash if too many redemptions are asked for that they don't have. I don't know if this is going to happen. I know eventually it will happen. I don't know exactly how. But I think it's definitely a good sign that the supply is so low, because basic economics, if supply is low, price is higher, right? It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that.
So I want to end on a little controversy. You had brought this up earlier. It wouldn't be an interview with you if we didn't discuss the globalist agenda. But as you mentioned, there was an announcement by the WHO and the EU at a joint press conference on June 5th that they didn't call it a vaccine passport, but they called it a digital health certificate, something like that. And they claim it is the first building block of the WHO Global Digital Health Certification Network. What do you make of this? It seems crazy because for most people, the pandemic is behind us. And I don't know how they're going to push this. Are they going to say, oh, there's a new strain of COVID now? Are they going to, hope there's another pandemic? In the very worst, most conspiratorial case, are they going to somehow release another virus to be able to enforce this? You have this coupled with the fact that they have they are in the works of drafting up a pandemic accord, which they're trying to get all the member countries to sign, which gives the WHO a level of control in the case of something they deem a pandemic over policy in those respective countries. So it seems like this all ties together. Where do you think this is all headed?
Okay. These questions, I to reframe the question in a more general sense, okay, you have these bad actors here in the globalist organizations that had something to do with what happened in the last 2 years, and I won't get any more specific than that because there's only certain things we can say here. However you think they were involved in it, fine, keep that in your head. Maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. But what we know, what is pretty certain, even if this was a complete accident, is that these organizations, who WEF, whatever, they definitely want more control over our lives. Absolutely, that is 100% clear. Now, the general question you're asking is, how far are they going to get, and how are they going to do it before everything falls apart? And all I can say is that, okay, you could take this and say, be very aggressive about it and say, look, I have to fight this. We have to get together and stop this because this would be a calamity. And absolutely it would, because many people would not be able to travel at all. Personally, I don't know if am I allowed to say this? I would rather never, ever travel again than take anything that they tell me to take. I would get, like, it would make me sad and I would want to travel, but I am not going to put anything inside myself that they keep me in a prison to take. And I would rather just not travel ever. Now, I don't think that's going to happen because eventually everything's going to fall apart, and that's going to fall apart too. And the WHO's going to fall apart because they're not going to have any money from their constituent countries. So the basic question is, what do we have to do? Do we have to fight this, or should we just wait until the whole system collapses and buy gold and silver until it does? Or should we do both? Right. So I've had enough of being an activist. I'm not an activist person, fighting actively all the time. But like for the last 2 years, from 20 to 2022, I did things that I would have never done, ever, because I felt like directly under attack. So like I had to. So look, if you feel that you have a plan to stop this with your local representative, to go to the WHO or whatever, do it, fight, good. And if you want to fight by buying gold and silver, then do that, because that'll help too. And if you just want to like duck into a corner in some rural area and just wait for everything to fall apart, it will. Do what you think you need to do with your talents and fight how you can. This is how I'm doing it. Do what you need to do.
Very well said, and a great note to end things on. But before I let you go, for those who want to learn more, could you tell us about the Endgame Investor?
Yeah, at the Endgame Investor, I basically do monetary analysis on what is happening in the banking system with the dollars, and I follow the COMEX, and I frame everything in terms of an Austrian viewpoint. The point is, like, I trade sometimes, but I'm not a big trader, so it's not like, oh, I think gold is going to go down tomorrow, so let's sell. And I'm not doing that. I'm basically helping people guide themselves and keep a mental stability to hold on to the basic concepts here, so that no matter where the market goes, you have some emotional stability, and knowing that I'm behind you, and this is all fine. Like this is just waves in the sea, and we're headed to the iceberg. And just relax. And you got to do it wisely. So if intellectual discourse to help you keep grounded in the logic of everything that's going on is going to help you stay calm, then I would say be my subscriber, because I can help with that. And I'm really talking to myself when I write, and just organizing the thoughts and the occurrences in ways that make sense in my system of logic. So yeah, and every so often I give buy and sell recommendations. And that's what I do.
Great. Well, I'll put a link in the description.
Wait, hold on. Not recommendations.
Go ahead.
I'm not allowed to do that. I say what I'm doing, and that's it. I don't make any recommendations. Sorry.
Right. No, totally understood. And I will put a link below to the Endgame Investor for those who are interested in checking it out. Thank you once again, Rafi. It's always a great time chatting with you, and looking forward to doing it again.
Thanks, Jesse. Looking forward also.